Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept the humble obeisances. All glories to the contribution of Prabhupada. All glories to our beloved speaker for today, His Grace GANGA Das PRABHU. And all glories to assembled Vaishnava devotees. We thank you all as always. Today is Tuesday, and we have one of our own, His Grace, who is going to be speaking with us from the Nectarian Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhuji, well, most of you wouldn't know that I was forgetful and I did not alert Prabhu early enough of this service. So we are very grateful that even though it was a very short notification, Prabhuji accepted it to do this service. We appreciate and we thank you so much, Prabhu. Without further ado, we may put the verse on the screen and you take it over from me. Hare Krishna.
Om Agyantimirandasya Janang Jana Salakaya Chakshuro Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Radhanath Swami Ite Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nite Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaura Vani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunyavari Pachatyai Desatarine Shri Chaitanyam Nanogistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayan Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Syam Shri Rupam Sagrajatan Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Kamsa Jivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namasute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishubhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyaschai Kripasindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanembhayo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanyan Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrindam. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'd like to formally welcome everyone present in the audience and also beg for your blessings and mercy that I may be able to do this service with due diligence for my purification and for the benefit of those in the audience. Hare Krishna. We are taking our reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 15, Description of the Kingdom of God, text number 34. We'll read the sloka, the synonym, and then translation and purport. Hare Krishna. Tadvam amusya paramasya vikunta briyatu katum prakristam ihandi mahi mandadivyam lokam ito vrajam antarabhava dristya papiyasas traya ime ripavosia yatra. Word for word transliteration. Therefore, unto these two, amosia of him, Paramasya, the supreme, Vikunta Bhatu, the Lord of Vaikunta, Kartum, to bestow, Prakristam, benefit, Iha, in the matter of this offense, Dimahi, let us consider, Manda Dibyam, those whose intelligence is not very nice, Lokan, to the material world, Ita, from this place Vaikunta, Rajatam, go, Antara Baba, duality, Tristia, on account of sin, Papi, Yasa, sinful, Traya, 3, Ime, these, Ripava, enemies of the Asya of a living entity, Yatra, where. Translation and explanation by His Divine Grace, C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Jagaguru, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Therefore, let us consider how these two contaminated persons should be punished. The punishment should be apt, for thus benefit can eventually be bestowed upon them. Since they find duality in the existence of Vaikuntha life, they are contaminated and should be removed from this place to the material world, where the living entities have 3 kinds of enemies. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The reason why pure souls come into the existential circumstance of the material world, which is considered to be criminal department of the Supreme Lord, is stated in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, verse 27. It is stated that as long as a living entity is pure, he is in complete harmony with the desire of the Supreme Lord. But as soon as he becomes impure, he is in disharmony with the desires of the Lord. By contamination, he is forced to transfer to this material world, where the living entities have 3 enemies, namely desire, anger, and lust. These 3 enemies cause the living entity to continue material existence. And when one is free from them, he is eligible to enter the kingdom of God. One should not, therefore, be angry in the absence of an opportunity for sense gratification. And one should not be lusty to acquire more than necessary. In this verse, it is clearly stated that the 2 doormen should be sent into the material world, where criminals are allowed to reside. Since the basic principle of criminality are sense gratification, anger, and unnecessary loss, persons conducted by these 3 enemies of living entity are never promoted to Vaikuntha. People should learn Bhagavad Gita and accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna as the Lord of everything. They should practice satisfying the senses of the Supreme Lord instead of trying to satisfy their own senses. Training in Krishna consciousness will help one to be promoted to the Vaikuntha. Mukankaroti Vachalam, Pangam Langa Yatigirim, Yakripata Mahamande, Shri Guru Natarinam, Yakripata Mahamande, Paramananda Madhava, Sri Krishna, Chaitanyan Ishvara. Hare Krishna. The whole pastime in this chapter requires very, very deep understanding to be able to speak about it. Otherwise, we may have accidental lip discharge and then misconstrue things. To start this text, I like to establish a concept that can guide our comprehension. When Prabhupada got to Boston, Massachusetts in 1965, he uttered a prayer. And in that prayer, he mentioned, Tomara Ichaya Sabe Hoi Maya Bas, Tomara Ichaya Nasa Maya Barasa. Translation of this very song is, all living entities have come under the control of the illusory energy by your will. And therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. This is the foundation of this discussion. Jan Vijay, the four Kumaras, all of this development is the will of the Supreme Lord, because he has something to achieve. That's why this scenario was created. And so when we passionately or fanatically speak about this pastime, sometimes we may misrepresent facts if we don't have this fundamental understanding. So Vajaya and Vijay, for them to be in Vaikunta, automatically they belong to what Krishna described in chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita when he said, there are two natures. Two natures, one is Shara and the other is Akshara, the fallible and the infallible. And those who are fallible, they stay in the material world. The infallible are in the spiritual world. So we are seeing a scenario now where those who are in the spiritual world, they are coming down here. It creates some kind of atmosphere for curiosity. And that curiosity has to be cleared for us to be able to share. Presently in ISKCON, there's a controversial discussion going on about how the living entity fell from the spiritual world. And some school of thought are saying they never fell. So it is point, counterpoint. So in discussing this issue, one should be very clear. That is why I started with the foundational concept that it is by the will of the Supreme Lord that we are wherever we are. And then it is also by his will that we come down to this material world. It is by his will that we stay in the spiritual world or go back to the spiritual world from here. That is Prabhupada's expression when he saw the audience in America. So here in the purport, Prabhupada is mentioning, opening, the reason why pure souls come into material existential circumstance of the material world, which is considered to be the criminal department of the Supreme Lord. So the material world is a prison house, and prison house is not reserved for gentlemen, in the obvious. It is for those who are deviants, those who don't want to follow law and order. So they are incarcerated. But then the lesson to learn here, incarceration is not for destruction. Incarceration in modern time, they use the word correctional center. So it's not like they are condemned. They still have hope that they can be better than what they are now if they realize the reasons why they go there. So in the beginner's guide, it is mentioned, those souls who out of madness are inimical towards Krishna are placed in the material world. This world is like a prison house of reformatory punishment. It is not destructive punishment. So the lesson we will learn here also is that when we have reason to correct or to chastise, we should know what is the objective of this correction or this chastisement. We must have welfare for the individual concerned in our heart. If actually we have to do correction. And we can see in our scriptures, there are many instances many examples where people have been placed into correctional circumstances. Alhaya in Ramayan, the wife of Gautama, was defiled by Indra. And then when the husband came to know, he caused her to remain as stone. She remained a mound of stone, but that ram will be the one who will come and release her from that incarceration. And how did Lord Ram do it? He kicked the stone with his feet, and getting the mercy of the dust of lotus seat of the spiritual supreme personality of Godhead is so purifying that whatever contamination we have been subjected to will become free of it. In December Bhagavatam, in 10th canto, Nala Kuvera and Manigriva, the two sons of Kuvera, were also corrected by Narad Muni, because with their exalted position, even when they are frolicking with women and wine, and they see a saintly person, they are supposed to express some decorum. The girls that they were frolicking with showed some adherence to decorum, that they tried to find way to cover themselves or hide. But the two sons of Kuvera, Manigriva and Nalakuva, they did not budge. They just felt, we are doing what we are supposed to do. It is okay with us. But Narad Muni felt, because of their heritage, their background, they should behave better. And he felt they should be taught a lesson. Just like what the four Kumaras are observing with the gatekeepers in Vaikuntha. So what did he do? Narad Muni caused them to become two Ashok trees in the palace of Nanda Maharaj. That is cause. But along with the cause is the benefit, that Krishna will be the one to come and save them. So during the Damodar month, you will hear us sing Kuvera Majo Badam, that the two sons of Kuvera, Nala Kuvera and Manigriva, they were delivered by Krishna. So exalted personalities, they're always thinking about the welfare of the living entities. And so they don't correct them to destruction. That is the lesson we on our own should also learn, because sometimes, especially when we are in position of management and we want to correct people, we do that sometimes in very excruciating way, that people even lose their faith in Krishna consciousness. So this is the lesson to learn. In this situation, the four Kumaras, they cost, and they mention it, what will be of benefit, apt. For thus, benefit can eventually be bestowed upon them, so that what they are observing now can be corrected. And ultimately, that is what happened. But already there has been an existing truth with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this is gatekeepers. The Supreme Personality of Godhead wants to have a spotting in the material world of fighting. And who is that person who is going to be as powerful as be able to contend with the Lord? So this whole scenario were created by Yoga Maya under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma mentioned three sthiti pralaya sadhana shakti eka chayeva yasya bhuvanani vivati durga icha nirupam apiyasya chachestatesa govinda madi purusham tamaham bhajami. So all that Durga is doing in the material world is just effected to accomplish the wish of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Icha. So these circumstances were created, and then Jai and Vijay were afflicted not of their own volition, but it happened. And so in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was asking Krishna that what compels a man? Why is it that somebody will act against his own disposition? In chapter 3, text 37, Arjuna was speaking. Atakena prayuktuyam papa charati purusha ani cham api van sneya valativa yotita. O descendant of Vishnu, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly? By what is one impelled, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Somehow we can trace this effect with Jan Vijay. Under normal setting, with have been in Vaikuntha, they should be of despicable conduct. But here they are found with fault. And Krishna answered in the next text that the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lost only. And in the spiritual world, lust, anger, and greed does not have a place. But this has inflicted on this personality because of the ultimate interest of the Lord. And when the four Kumaras came, they could observe it, but their perception was faulty. Their perception was faulty because they were doing their duty as they should do, but they found fault with them because their own desires are unfulfilled. That's why you see in the purport, Prabhupada is mentioning that one should not therefore be angry in the absence of an opportunity for sense gratification. Do not be angry. But here, they got angry. And in the Subodhini, it is mentioned that actually the actions of the Kumaras here is Vaishnava Aparat. They committed offense against Vaishnavas. And we can trace this to the fact that in the end, when they have pronounced their cause and the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared, they were not seeing guilt. They were not seeing guilt. If they have not done anything wrong, they will not know guilt. And they were expecting maybe they will face some reactions from the Personality of Godhead, which didn't happen. But then the discussion continued until the truth is reached, and then they moderated the cause, and the gatekeepers were given options, 3 and 10. 3 as very powerful demon, and 10 as children in a very Brahminical family. But the fear of the gatekeepers is never to lose sight or consciousness of the Personality of God, and which is the mother of all instructions. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So because of that, they don't want to forget Krishna even for a moment. They chose to take birth in the family or as powerful demons, and God himself will come to liberate them ultimately. So we see that in the end, there was cause, there was unpalatable development. The 4 Kumaras were quick and were inflicted by the same symptoms that the gatekeepers were afflicted with. Now why they got angry and rage, and even checkmating themselves. Without checkmating themselves, they uttered curse without waiting. And ultimately, the thing is that everything, that's why in Brahma Samhita I said, Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadi Adi Govinda Sarva Karanam is the cause of all causes. Whatever he wills, that is what will happen. And Prabhupada is telling us that in the material world, these things regularly take place. That there is anger, there is loss, there is greed. But Prabhupada referred to chapter 7, text 27 here, where he said, text 28, I mean, Prabhupada said 27, yeah. All living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by duality, arisen from desire and hate, icha and dwese. And these are the things that is keeping the material world ongoing. Material world will stop existing when desire stops and hate stops. And so when the four Kumaras observed that this is visible also in the spiritual world, they felt no, the spiritual world should not be afflicted with this. That was why they cursed the gatekeepers, just like you will do surgical operation for cataract so that the vision can be restored. They did surgical operation to remove them with those traits. But in the end, it is the desire of the Lord. And so sometimes people speak about Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, forgetting this background narrative, that they are originally associates of God, they remain associates of God, but they only came down to facilitate the desire of the Lord to have very extraordinary, powerful fight. So we make references to them as if they are the wars of the creations of God. But really, they are not. It's just pastime of the Lord. So Prabhupada continued that by contamination, one is forced to be transferred to the material world. And when we are transferred to the material world, we are inflicted with these three enemies. Actually, there are 6 enemies of the living entity. Everybody is custodian of these 6 enemies, but emphasis is more on these 3. But it is the main assignment one has to overcome. Then one will be eligible to leave the material world for the spiritual world. And the example we see in the scenario of when Krishna came as the son of Devaki. First, 6 sons of Devaki were killed by Kamsa, 6. And these are the 6 enemies. They represent the 6 enemies. And because they have taken birth through the womb of Devaki, that womb has become afflicted with these same qualities. And this correctional measure was also enacted by the advent of Balaram through the same womb. He wasn't born of the womb, but he came to the womb and did environmental sanitation. He cleaned these 6 vices that are the enemies of the living entity and made the place habitable for Krishna to enter and manifest himself. So we can see how deep-rooted these enemies are in the material world. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna was mentioning, like Vishwanath Chakrabarti mentioned, in reference to the same discussion, he made mention to text 16, chapter 16, text 21, that the 3 enemies, lust, anger, and greed, leads to seeing differences in one's experience. Differences, man, woman, boy, adult, heat and cold, honor and dishonor. All these, we observe duality. And that duality is not visible in the spiritual world. So in the chapter 16 that Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti had mentioned, text 21, he mentioned, Krishna is mentioning, there are 3 gates leading to hell. 3 gates. lust, anger, and greed. And is that one is admonished, every sane man should give this up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. In the purport, Prabhupada mentioned the beginning of demoniac life is described herein, demoniac life. And they are coming to play the role of demons. He said one tries to satisfy his lusts. And when he cannot, anger arises and greed arises. But the same man who does not want to glide down to the species of the demoniac life must try to give up these three enemies, which can kill the self to such an extent that there will be no possibility of liberation from the material entanglements. No possibility. And in the third chapter, Krishna was analyzing to Arjuna, where are these things situated in the living entity? Where is their place of seat? Where do they sit? He said, they are situated in the mind, the senses, and the intelligence at the sitting place of these lusts. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. So it is that covering of the intelligence that makes us have false ego, false identity, which is contrast to our original identity, which is what Mahaprabhu was telling Sanatana Goswami. Jivera Swarup Ahoy Nitya Krishnadas. We're eternal servants of Krishna. But when we come to the material world, because we have been covered up with lust, anger, and greed, we are thinking we are servants of our senses, or servant of our mind and our intelligence. And this increases our desire to want to, like Prabhupada is saying, the beginning of demoniac life is strive, endeavor assiduously to gratify the senses. But instead of gratifying the senses, Prabhupada is saying the purport is to try to gratify the senses of the Supreme Personality of God, Rishikesha, Rishikena. Instead of letting our senses to degrade us, we should engage the senses in the service of the Supreme Personality of God for satisfying the senses of the Lord, satisfying the senses of the Lord. And as long as this is done, we'll always be liberated. But once we accommodate this contamination, automatically we are not fit to be in the divine presence of the Lord, and then we are cut off. We'll be cut off. So Papa mentioned in the purport also, it is stated that as long as the living entity is pure, is in complete harmony with the desire of the Supreme. Harmony with the desire of the Supreme. But as soon as it becomes impure, he is in disharmony with the desire of the Lord. This is called a state of contamination. By contamination, he is forced to transfer to this material world where the living entities have three enemies. These enemies are not in the spiritual world. They only manifest here. And that is what is keeping the material world going. Desire, anger, and lust. These three enemies force the living entities to continue material existence. It's a continuous exercise. But in order to break this vicious circle, one has to rise above this. You have to get rid of this and then be free from them. When one is free from them, is eligible to enter the kingdom of God. And sign that one is free from them is that he doesn't get angry when there is no facility for sense gratification. It's like somebody was trying to describe what is the difference between old age, the aged, and the youth. For the youth, if there's no entertainment, nothing to keep them busy, excitement, they are what? In displeasure. Only when entertainments are there, they feel pleasure. And if it's not there, they feel great pain. No pleasure means pain. But for the aged, pleasure means when there's no pain. If you are aged, there's no arthritis, there's no rheumatism, there's no toothache, there's no this, they feel pleasurable. But for the young one, absence of entertainment is very painful for them. So with the sign that one has become free from this is that he does not have anger when there is absence of objects of sense gratification. That's how Prabhupada put it here. One should not get angry when there are no facilities for sense gratification. And one should not be lusty to acquire more than necessary. In Ipadeshamrita, it is mentioned, atihara prayasascha, over accumulation. And we can see in our day-to-day life, daily experience, people work so hard to build mansions, create edifices, accumulate money, only for their sense gratification. And when they die, the same achievement they've made will be the cost of their being recycled in the material world. So people who are desirous of liberation, they should sparsely, very carefully deal with over accumulation. Atihara. There was a wealthy businessman. He had good business enterprise, and he was engaging the family members in participating in the business like a family business. And when he was at the point of death, he was very concerned about the continuity of that business and the accumulated wealth. But all his dependents and relatives, they came to see him, his children. And then he asked him, you are here, you are here, you are here, you are here. And who is taking care of the business? The moment he said, who is taking care of the business? He left his body, thinking of the business. And so he paved his way to come back to the material world. Krishna said in Gita, whatever one thinks, what state of consciousness one maintains at the point of death, he creates his next destination. So Prabhupada is telling us here to be free from the material world and free from anger, lust, and greed. We should not be angry if there is absence of opportunity or sense gratification. That's actually for our liberation. But what I'm also saying, every intelligent man knows that the attachment to material things is a cause of bondage. But those same attachments, if they are channeled towards devotees of the Lord and the service of the personality of Godhead, he opens the doorway for liberation. He opens the doorway for liberation. So liberation means absence of this. And it is the presence of that which is contagious. The four Kumaras themselves became afflicted with the infliction of Jaya and Vijaya. Anger came in them, and it is in rage of anger that they release the curse. So that is not required even for our own spiritual progress. But we also taught in Net of Instruction, anger is not wrong in itself, but it is how do we apply it? An example is given. It took Krishna a lot of effort to be able to arouse anger in Arjuna, for him to be able to fight in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So Arjuna's anger was applied in doing the biddings of Krishna, killing the impious Kauravas and their cohorts. The other example is given that even Hanuman also, he expressed anger in Lanka, set things ablaze, and ultimately it was for the pleasure of the Ram. So it's not that anger is wrong in itself if it is engaged in the service of the Lord, but if it's for our own whims and caprices, it only opens the doorway to hellish life. So onus is on us. I want to make frantic effort to see that we are subjugating them. But all these are not possible by our own inclination. That's why there's a prescription of the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. So when they say the prayer Mukankaruti Vachala, in the material world is very difficult. It's almost like impossible to be free from anger, especially in Kali Yuga, at this age of quarrel and hypocrisy. You cannot quarrel if there's no anger. So, but the Guru guides us. Like Prabhupada set up the institution, set up the yama and niyama, do's and don'ts. And if we regularly adhere to them, automatically we'll become free from these enemies of the living entity. And we'll become eligible to be recipients of the mercy of God and be able to go back to the kingdom of God. So they should practice satisfying the senses of the Supreme Lord instead of trying to satisfy their own senses. And Prabhupada ends the purport by saying, training in Krishna consciousness will help one to be promoted to Vaikuntha, where there are no anxieties. Kunta, material world. Vaikuntha, spiritual world. But we have to be trained. So this training is according to the prescription of Prahlad Maharaj that is called Navavida Bhakti. 9 steps or 9 stages of devotional service. It comprises of hearing, chanting, and remembering. Number 4, worshiping. In the first canto of Bhagavatam, emphasis is laid on these 4. Hearing. And what will you hear? Hear about the glories of devotional service, the glories of the personality of Godhead, the glory of Vaikunthas we are reading now, the kingdom of God. That musician said everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. But who has died and gone to heaven to be able to tell us? But see our good fortune that in Srimad Bhagavatam, we are getting glimpse of what spiritual world looks like. And that's why every of our temple is called embassy to the spiritual world. Like Prabhu was asking yesterday, this will be there in the temples. But temple actually, Prabhupada says, is an hospital. Many people of many afflictions or different varying ailments, they come to the temple. If they apply themselves to the examinations, diagnosis, and the prescription offered them in the temple, automatically they are assured that they will get well. So when we come to the temple also, doesn't mean we are already pure. We have so much of impurity, but the potency of the process, which is what Prabhupada is saying, training in Krishna consciousness will help one. So we have to subject ourselves to the training diligently, sincerely, if we are intelligent. And apply ourselves to be able to have these our enemies subjugated. And it's like you're having theories, scientific theories, but you have to go to the laboratory to practicalize them. So we hear all of this, the vices of material world and all of this, and then where are you going to test them? The temple is an arena for this. In the temple, there's no peddling of drugs, there's no sale of narcotics, there's no hawking of meat, no discussion about intoxication, illicit sex also is abhorred, and nobody discusses this. So it's an atmosphere that has been kept aside to help you. People like us came to this movement already destroyed. Already destroyed. But by just taking shelter of Krishna consciousness, we started having conscience. Oh, this is not good. It would be nice if you stay away from it. And with the association of devotees, because that's the potency, when you associate with like-minded people, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, I will go to holy places in the association of like-minded devotees. And so, a very high degree of sincerity. You're not sincere because you want to please somebody. Your sincerity is because you want to salvage yourself. You have to emancipate yourself. And if you are not sincere, you're not undoing anybody. You are undoing yourself. You're undoing yourself. So we should practice Krishna consciousness, subjecting ourselves to treatment that is prescribed. And in that same beginner's guide, said, those who are intelligent, listen to Krishna as he speaks in Bhagavad Gita as it is. They try to make a solution to the problem of repeated birth and death. They take up devotional service to revive their dormant Krishna consciousness and go back to Godhead. Intelligence. In Bhagavatam, he said, Krishna Varna Trisa Krishna Sangopanga Prasadam Ya Jay Sankitana Priya Yajantihi Sumeda. Those who have fine brain tissues will take to this process of Krishna Sankirtan. But in Narad Muni's prescription, he did not limit it to only chanting. He expands it. It is mentioned one can focus or concentrate on one of these 9, or all the 9, or 2 or 3, and it will perfect his life. So this is where the training encapsulates. Training in Krishna consciousness will help one to be promoted. So in Krishna consciousness, you add value to yourself and you become an asset. In every preaching center, those who are really assets are those who have proficiency of proper training in taking care of the deities, doing backup for the deities, those who give prolific classes and speak in seminars and workshops, those who are very, very astute in preparing very sumptuous Krishna PRASAD for Krishna, and then involving in Sankirtan, book distribution, and Harina. It is training. None of us came here with knowledge of this. We may be able to play guitar and do a lot of all those musical things, but when you come to Krishna consciousness, you are guided to apply them. And in the application, you get purified by the process. And that purification is what leads us to be able to, or be eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. So this is the sum and substance of this very text, but then it's only an aspect of the very elaborate story of where we started, how the living entities have come under the control of the illusory energy by Krishna's will. And by Krishna's will also, If he wants, he will release them. We should just be like the clay in the hands of the potter. Break me, mold me. That should be our disposition. Be available. So it's mentioned that Krishna is not looking for able-bodied people. People are macho, very able-bodied. Not people who are stalwart in professing that they are stalwart devotees. Krishna is looking for people who are available, able, available. It is not Krishna who crowns our efforts and make us capable. So let us be among those who are available, and Krishna will perfect our capability. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Of course, as always. Dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, reflections, realizations, you may want to ask or share, please indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be also unmute to ask your question or share your reflections. Shri Ganga Prasad Prabhu, I tell you, I have about 25 questions, but we cannot attempt to.
So help me God.
So help me God, indeed, yes. Anandinanam Prabhu, please, if you unmute, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisance.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji, nice to have your darshan. Hare Krishna.
Nice to see you here once again. So, Prabhu, Saturday, Prabhu, please, if you can put the purport back on the screen so that I may ask my question from the purport.
Okay.
Especially talking about the three enemies. Why the three enemies? Desire, lust, and
Greed.
Okay. Okay. Saturday, Prabhu, if you can read it out, please. I'm using.
By contamination, it is forced to transfer to this material world where the living entities have three enemies, namely desire, anger, and lust. When I read this, I was thinking, well, if this is what it is, then maybe I should stop eating dal. And then I realized that dal has H. So I said, okay, I can go ahead and eat dal because D-A-L, dal, desire, anger, and lust. So I can go back to eating dal. Dal is D-H-A-L. All right, you may go ahead. And I did it in a problem.
Nice one, nice one.
So, these three enemies, how can we engage them?
How can we?
And also, can one live without?
Hold on. We didn't get what you were saying. You were saying these three enemies. What can we didn't get the question.
Okay, what I mean is, can these three enemies be engaged in devotional service? And also, can someone, a living being, live without any desire? Is it possible for someone living but without having any sort of desire?
Okay.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Yeah. Very nice question and very well placed. Your first segment of question is, can we engage this in Krishna service? I think towards the end of the discussion, I had mentioned how Krishna even spiced Arjuna up to be able to have anger to fight in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And Hanuman also used anger in defending Sita's interests, fighting for Ram to get back his consort and destroying Lanka. Anger is required. So what it means in Krishna consciousness, as Rupa Goswami put it, Nirbanda Krishna Sambande Yukta Vairagya Uchate, using everything in the service of Krishna. Everything in the service of Krishna. So it's possible, and it is in the engaging of them in the service of Krishna that will become Nirbanda, become free, will be unbound. Otherwise, they bind us in this material world. We're engaging them in Krishna's service, become free. And your second segment of question, what is that? Remind me again.
Can one live without any desire at all?
And one live in this material world without desire, without anger, without lust, actually without a desire.
So the answer to this is what I already have given, engaging them in the service of Krishna. It's just like Prabhupada was saying in the purport of Nectar of Instruction, that in Krishna consciousness, we are born sex life. But Krishna said in Gita, I'm that sex life which is not contrary to principles of religion. So Prabhupada expand that concept. In Krishna consciousness, we are not against it. But as long as it's to procreate Krishna conscious children, there's endorsement for it. Go ahead. And Prabhupada also admonished, if that is not the intention, stay clear. So yes, there will be no stage of desirelessness. As long as you're in the material world, there is desire. But what Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, text 54, is that as we live, we should come to the platform of Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, na sochati, na kankshati. There's no hankering, there's no lamentation. That is when one is transcendental to it. In Gita, I said, Naisgunya, Trigunya Visaya Veda, rise above. Trigunya Visaya Veda, the three modes, the Vedas speak about three modes of material nature. Everybody is affected by it, but you have to rise above it. And in this I say, become situated transcendentally. That is when you can realize the personality of God. And when you have realized the personality of God, you can engage everything at your disposition in the service of the Lord. The Mayavadis, Prabhupada was quoting, they want to keep away from opulence. They say it's Maya. Wealth is Maya. Wealth is Maya. So they don't want to have things to do with money, wealth. But Prabhupada is saying, bring on the wealth in the world, and I will engage them in the service of Krishna. Because Lakshmi belongs to Narayana. So that is Yukta Vairagya, engaging everything in Krishna's service. It's just like what that purport, I have read this sometime in one of the classes where we're talking about Krishna karma, working for Krishna. 1155, it mentions it. If one has a land, you should not forsake it. Use it, plant tulsi, plant flowers, and use it for the service of Krishna. That is the proper use, called Krishna karma. If you have money and you want to give it all to Krishna, you give it and to be engaged in the service of Krishna. If you're a businessman, you can do the business and make Krishna the proprietor of the business. So the same thing that is called Maya become converted to Krishna karma, engaged in the service of Krishna. So desire will continue to be there. It will not stop. Desire, icha. But that is material desire that is contended with. Everybody is desiring to increase how much they serve Krishna, how much they please Krishna. So that cannot be completely cut off. It's just that the material side of it, desiring for ourselves, is what we should work on, and desire for pleasing Krishna's senses. So you can't stop it. The point of desirelessness is the point of non-existence. Okay, you will definitely have a desire. Either you are desiring for yourself and your sense gratification, or you are desiring for the pleasure of Krishna. So you can see in the purport, Prabhupada was mentioning that harmony, it is stated that as long as the living entity is pure, what makes him pure? Is in complete harmony with the desires of the Supreme Lord. It's the same thing that the gatekeepers are going through now. They decoded the desire of the Lord. Then Yoga Maya did the finishing. And all these developments are coming. Okay? So, but as soon as he becomes impure, look at the word pure and impure, he is in disharmony with the desire of the Lord. And when you are in disharmony with the desire of the Lord, what do you do? What is the situation? You are desiring for yourself. That is the danger. So desire is not wrong in itself. It's how it is applied. Just like Prabhupada said, knife is good in the hands of a surgeon, but in the hand of a dacoit is destructive. Does that give any insight to your question, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, it does. So in actuality, Prabhu, is anything bad at all in this material world? Since everything can be engaged in devotion.
Very good,
Is there
very
anything
good.
bad at all in this material
Very
world?
good.
Or is it
Very
because
good.
of our conditioning that we may claim that this thing is awkward? If you can throw more light on that.
In having to live in the material world, you can be indifferent to the material situation, which is what Krishna taught. First instruction of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, learn to tolerate without being disturbed. So if you are not disturbed by it, it is okay. But for preachers, that is why it's recommended that one should come down to the platform of Madhyama Adhikari. Otherwise, the Uttama Adhikari is saying everything is perfect. Everything is all right. Krishna made everything perfect. So why spend energy in trying to see how you balance them? But when you come to Madhyama Adhikari, you find out that people are suffering, people are enjoying, and Krishna consciousness will help them to rise. So yes, in reality, Krishna made everything perfect. But then, how we perceive it and how we apply it, that determines what it looks like. But Krishna advised, they arise from your sense perception. Just learn to tolerate without being disturbed, because they will continue to be there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Prabhuji, I don't know, when you speak, there is some sound coming from your background. Maybe you can check.
Okay.
But we'll go to Thakur Murari Prabhu. Thakur Murari Prabhu, you unmute. Hare
Just
Krishna.
a minute.
Sorry, Krishna Prabhu. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So please accept my obeisances and go to Srila Prabhupada and the Assembled Devotees. So thanks to Prabhu for presenting this the topic as usual, and also to always express our appreciation for the work that Hare Krishna Africa is doing. Yes. And just a question, does it really matter why or how we fell from the spiritual world? Does it matter? I mean, I think probably said there's a discussion in ISKCON whether or not. Did he say whether we fell or we did not fall? I'm trying to remember if that was the
I didn't
the
get
topic.
you.
I was saying, does it really matter?
He's,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
asking whether it really matters whether the loving entity fell from the spiritual world or did not fall from the spiritual world, because at the opening of your discussion, you did mention it's a huge topic in ISKCON.
And there are also publications.
You're breaking up. Ganga PRABHU. I don't know what happened.
Advice not to spend a lot of our energy. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Am I audible now?
Very much. Yes, you're audible.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you, Prabhuji.
All right. With me here is this book.
Seems we lost our speaker. It was having weaker Wi-Fi, I believe. I'm not sure if he even got Takumurari Prabhu, if he got your question. We'll see if he's able to come back. We'll put the question back to him, and then we'll see.
Yeah, can I just quickly add that if one finds oneself in an accident or one finds oneself lost, you can choose whether or not to debate whether how did I get lost, or you can decide how am I to get out of where I'm at the present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm saying that. As probably I just said, it's like, for example, you're saying whether you should worship on a Saturday or Sunday. You do spend a lot of time talking about it, but end of it all, people going to work and worship on Saturday or they worship on Sunday. So spending time thinking either or, yes, it could be not a good use of time. So I'm saying, does it matter? We are here, and we are fortunate in the sense that we are getting a lot of information how to get back to our devotional service.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we hope he comes back. But to me, like you were asking whether it's actually necessary. To me, I say yes. It's necessary because we've heard Krishna tell us that when we go to that abode of his, we never come back. And if now we are saying that we were already there and we came here, then what does it mean? What does it mean that I have to struggle so much? I have to give up so much of sense gratification to go back to that place where I still have the chance to come back here. So if we come to a full understanding of where we came from, why we are here, then it will be helpful, whether we have to do whatever tapasya, whatever is necessary to go to that place. But somehow our speaker is not, oh, he's back. Ganga PRABHU is back. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, you may unmute. Yes, Nadine Prabhu. Yeah, I'll read what you just said. Ganga Prabhu, yes, please.
I'm here, breaking transmission.
Yes, we had. we're thankful you're back. So the question Takum Murari Prabhu had on the floor was, is it actually necessary for the devotees to one know how we got here? No. Does it really help? And before you came in, it was expressing a little more into the question, like some religious people, all religions are trying to worship God, but some say you have to worship God Friday, some say Saturday, some say Sunday. So worshiping God this day, that day, does that really help rather than just worshiping? So that is his question. Do we really need to find out where we came from, our origin?
Thank you very much. Nothing wrong in the question.
Yeah.
But then there's a local balance adage here that says, if you are too inquisitive, you find out about the head of a dog. What will you do with the jaw? What will you do with the jaw of the dog? So there's this book in my custody here. Okay, it's in relation to this very discussion.
Yeah.
He said, in Vaikunta, not even a blade of grass or not even the leaves fall. And that is the argument that the four Kumaras are holding. Nothing should make people fall. And so that was why they did that surgery. If we are perceiving this in the spiritual world, then have to counter it. But that the four Kumara, the Jaya and Vijay came down here does not make them conditioned living entity. Because Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, there are two natures, Shara and Akshara. Those who are fallen are designated as fallen. And those who are not in the spiritual world, they never fall. But this argument came in scholastic exchange, and somebody wrote this book, Satyanaran Das, A Treasure on the Bondage of the Jiva. So the argument is both, but why I use that adage, we are here already, and so we are classified under the fallen. So what is the solution? In that book, Coming Back, he said, don't come back. That's the last chapter. Don't come back. So that is what we should work towards, to get out of here. And Krishna gave many assurance that if you come back, you never take birth in the material world again. If you understand how he comes here and his activity, you not take birth in the material. So we should be preoccupied with what makes us go back, come back to Godhead. Not the intellectual satisfaction of whether we fell. We are already fallen. We are here. So how do we get out of here? So your question is, what should be our priority? And the second part that I was hearing Sadev Prabhu mention, worshiping every day is for worship. Prahlad gave Nava Vida Bhakti. It did not specify it should be done once in a month. It's not like hospital prescription. 1-3 times a day. You have to do it regularly. And Prabhupada advised one of his purport. One should therefore mold his life in such a way that he is 24 hours Krishna conscious. So 24 hours is every day. And when we are saying, okay, Sunday is holy day, and Saturday is Sabbath day, but every day is holy as long as there's God consciousness activities going on every day. Every day becomes holy. I don't know if that gives insight into your question, Prabhu.
Well, I saw him give heart, so I believe it. Yes.
Again,
Yeah. Thank you, Takumara Prabhu. Shrimara Prabhu. Oh, Mukunda Prabhu is in the house. Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much. But Shrimara Prabhu, please give me unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Dandavat
yes.
Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Agreso Guru and Goranga. Hare Krishna.
Sound, I'm driving. So, thank you very much. Just a little contribution to your answer to analyzing the question. You gave the standard answer. We cannot be desireless, right? And wish to desire to serve Krishna, to kill our desires to personal service. However, Bhagavad Gita actually gave it as a condition that unless we are free from desire and hate, we cannot go back to the kingdom of God. And then that end, I would like to say that yes, it is possible to be free from desire at a certain stage of our spiritual life.
Shrimad Prabhu. Hold on, Prabhu. You are not clear enough.
You're not hearing me?
You are not
The line is
audible
breaking.
enough. Yeah.
Okay, let me pull up.
Maybe because you are driving.
Now I'll pull up. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So, like I said, I would like to have, you've already given the standard answer, but then I would also like to add that it is possible to be free from desire at a certain stage in our spiritual life. Otherwise, we can become bombarded with desire even in spiritual life and thinking that it is devotional service, but actually, may not be helping us. So this is the condition that Krishna gave. And I believe that at a certain stage in spiritual life, it is possible to be free from desire. And I'm going to say Srila Prabhupada's example. Srila Prabhupada, on his deathbed, he was asked, what would you want, Srila Prabhupada, that we can do for you? And he said, Krupita Nahi, I have no desire. So we could understand at that stage, there was nothing of any importance to him any longer. So I'm adding this so that we don't think that we can continue desiring everything is for Krishna, everything is for Krishna, but actually we get embedded in Maya, thinking that we're desiring for Krishna. We have to, in my opinion, we have to strive to get to that point when nothing else is important to us. Like we always hear from the Buddha example, desire only devotional service as much as our breath, nothing else. Anyway, that's a small contribution. Sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our desire, we should strive to see that it is not contaminated or in disharmony with the desire of the Lord. That's what Prabhupada said in the purport. As long as we desire in harmony with Krishna, we are pure. So when we talk of desire, it's not a blank check. There's material desire, there are also spiritual desires. So where are we tilting the pendulum to? Material desire, yes, can only be stopped with the help of spiritual desires. So there is no case of desirelessness. You will desire. Even when Prabhupada was in the Prabhupada Lamrita, the final is, no, I've played my own part. I think that's where that same question comes, what do you want? But when Prabhupada felt he was getting a little better, he desired to continue writing the purport and translations of Srimad Bhagavatam. He still desires. But thank you for the contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Ganga Prasad Prabhu. Thank you so much for the response to Srimad Prabhu's remark. Yeah. having no desire means you are dead. So there are two types of deaths. Either you are dead, this body is no more alive, or you are dead to material things. Then you say no desire. And my understanding also, then we'll go to His Grace Mukunda Prabhu. My understanding is that in spiritual life, in Vaishnavism, sometimes some people observe Mona, the vow of Mona, silence. Those who are non-Vaishnavas, when they observe this vow of Mona, they don't talk at all. But Vaishnavas, when they observe this vow of Mona, they talk. But they only talk about Krishna and his devotees. So in one sense, they are talking, but they are not talking because they're only talking about Krishna. And that is why Srila Prabhupada gives this example, an analogy that everybody makes noise, but when frogs make noise, they attract death. So even though others are making noise, but they are not attracting death. Whereas when the frog makes noise, it's attracting death. So when Srila Prabhupada on his deathbed said he has no desire, means that, to me, means that he's done all that he had to do. It's complete. But while he was here doing whatever he was doing, he had a desire. If there is no desire, then how can anybody do anything at all? But I will end it here. We'll go to His Grace Mukunda Prabhu. Please, Hare Krishna. So good to have your association, Prabhuji. You may unmute. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
I'm very
Prabhuji.
happy. Dandavad,
Dandavad,
Dandavad, Prabhuji.
Hare
Dandavad.
Krishna,
Yeah,
Prabhu.
I apologize. I'm at the doctor's appointment with my wife, so I'm not home. So therefore, I'm outside.
It's okay,
So,
Prabhuji.
but okay, Dandavad. So just one thing. First, I was going to comment, but then I put my hand down because Ganga Prabhu spoke so excellently on that point. There was no need to add. What he spoke was spot on. It was correct. I could tell some history. I was there when that book was being written. And I know those devotees, both Satyanarayan, Baba now, and Kundali Prabhu. And what had happened was that Srila Prabhupada had asked devotees early on to do some translations. And Satyanarayan Prabhu at that time was familiar with Sanskrit language and everything. So he was going to translate the Tattva Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami. They came to one word, which is called anadi. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada had been using the translation of that word as time immemorial. So there became some confusion. What should we do? Because the definition that Jiva Goswami gave was literal, that anadi means a time without any beginning. But in English, that doesn't really make sense. So time immemorial makes sense in English parlance. And so there was a whole discrepancy. Should they not use? Should they not use? That gave rise to the discussion of the issue in general of whether the jivas fall or not fall. Two divisions within the society developed around that. Two different books were written. But Srila Prabhupada earlier on had gotten wind of the possible confusion around the issue. So in a purport in the 7th canto, 1st chapter, verse 35, he put down the conclusion around that issue because it had been swirling in the society. So I was there in 75 when all this stuff was going on. And he actually put the conclusion there. Now, then the question came, well, why did he say something different before? And it was understood that when Srila Prabhupada came to America, you have to remember it was basically a Judeo-Christian environment. And most devotees in the Western world, even in Europe and other places, Africa as well, mostly had a background of either Islam, but especially Judeo-Christian background. So the idea of a fall from grace, repentance, and a return to grace was an easily digestible theme for us in the West. So Srila Prabhupada continued to preach on that basis. And as Prabhuji said, when the issue became too complex, he said, don't worry about how you got here, just worry about getting
How
out.
you get out of it?
You understand? Yes. And if you can understand the Siddhant, if you study Jiva Goswami's writings, you'll understand the Siddhant, but it's also not a crux issue. Like if somebody performed bhakti sincerely and they never understood whether we fell or not fell, but you did bhakti sincerely, you would still obtain the goal of love of God. Understand? So it's not a crux issue that you have to understand it. If you're a preacher, and especially if you end up preaching in circles where people are very knowledgeable about the writings of our Goswamis and so forth, it is good to understand the Siddhant clearly. So in, I think, 7.135 in the purport regarding the fall of Jai and Vijay, Srila Prabhupada makes a clear statement about not falling from the Vaikuntha planets, which means the spiritual world. At the same time, sometimes he would continue to preach in the same way that, yes, you're originally Krishna conscious and you have to go back to Godhead, even though the statement back to Godhead was actually taken from a speech given by the Archbishop of Canterbury. I think devotees know this, right? Srila Prabhupada heard a speech given by the Archbishop of Canterbury about how society was deviating from spiritual life and going wayward. And in his speech, he mentioned the society needs to turn back to the Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada liked that statement and named his magazine after it. And he would often use that phrase to describe, becoming Krishna conscious.
Well, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you so
You
much.
did very good job, Prabhuji.
Yes,
very good explanation you gave.
Thank you.
This this statement that Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada borrowed this phrase from this Archbishop. I had heard one Swami say that on Namra's podcast earlier, some time ago, which I totally 101% disagree. I disagree in the sense that Srila Prabhupada was very unique. He will use whatever is useful in serving Guru and Krishna. So I'm not saying that Srila Prabhupada would not accept or repeat a phrase or something that makes sense in serving Krishna. But Srila Prabhupada, before he came to the West, he was already preaching. He was already writing. And during those times, in fact, there is a collection of Back to Godhead, and it dates back all the way in the late 40s. That is when, long before Srila Prabhupada came to the West. And Srila Prabhupada labeled it Back to Godhead. Now, I had, like I told Ganga Prasad Prabhu that I have lots of questions because there is no way anybody can make it make sense to me that we, the 11 entities, are not origins of the spiritual world. When Krishna states in so many places, even in the same Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 16, where lots of the time devotees make reference to fallible and infallible. In that purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that we are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord is eternally in his spiritual world. That means that we are originally from there. But Harichakra Prabhu has his hand up. When Harichakra Prabhu is done with his question, if we still have some time, I would like to revisit this and try to explain why Srila Prabhupada's title of Back to Godhead magazine existed long before his meeting with whichever Christian priest or whatever for him to say that.
I'll send it to you. But actually, Srila Prabhupada wrote, he was describing how he started the magazine. So I'll send you, Prabhupada wrote that himself. That wasn't something devotees came up with.
Okay.
He wrote, oh, I got the name of this magazine. I'll send you that article. Prabhupada wrote that himself.
Okay, that would be interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Harichakra Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dandava Pranam. Ganga Prasad Prabhu. All glories to Gurudev. All glories to Prabhu. Yeah. I don't know who exactly asked the question about the day that we have to worship the Lord.
Thakur Murari Prabhu.
Okay, all right. Okay. Well, the answer Ganga Prasad Prabhu gave is I mean, very reasonable. But at the same time, my question is, if we all understand that every day should be a day to worship Krishna, be dedicated to Krishna, then why is it so important to, even as Vaishnavas, that on some specific days we have to fast and we have to engage more in Krishna consciousness? Like the days like Jamastami, days like Ekadashi, days like the appearance of the Guru Punim. So if every day is supposed to be fully utilized in the service of Krishna, then why don't we consider it like that? Yeah, every day worship Krishna. There is nothing. That is the most special thing to do.
Vyasa Puja.
Yeah. Then all these Vyasa Pujas are allotting specific days for all these things. What is the point? Yeah. If our whole aim is to, if we, I am thinking personally, apart from trying to worship Krishna every day, there is still some meaning in choosing a particular day or a particular situation, also to do some more spiritual services. Or because personally, what I think is that, like Christians use Sunday to worship, go to the church, and Muslims go on Fridays. My understanding is that they do that for Sadhu Sangha, for association, communion of saints, association of devotees. It's not that because they go to church every Sunday, that is the day they have chosen to worship God. No, they are supposed to worship God every day, but they're choosing a particular day to go for association of godly people, like-minded people. So that so if Ganga, if you can still go ahead and give us a little bit in depth about this situation. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Nice question. The issue with days came up because of social convenience. Even in the Hare Krishna movement, Mangalati is every day, Sandhyati is every day, Bhagavatam is every day. But is it everybody who is private to attend these gatherings every day? So for social convenience, we created the Sunday Love Feast, so that those who cannot participate in the ordinary days, they can join. And then there is more joy, Kevala Ananda can. There's joy in Sangha. So that is created. The same thing applies to every institution or tradition and culture, that they choose a day where they have more people gather. Otherwise, Prabhupada's instruction is one should plan his life in such a way that he is 24 hours Krishna conscious. Not that on particular day you'll be more conscious. Now, the question of Jamastami and those days that Ekadashi, they are days for intensifying. You know, it's like you are made to chant 16 rounds every day, but you are encouraged during Chaturmasya, you're encouraged during these festivals to chant more rounds. Ekadashi increased to 25 from 16, 32, 64. Means you give more time to this practice on these days, but that is not like if you don't do it every other day, it is wrong. It's just to intensify. So idea is to encourage people to do more, because the more, either in number, the merrier, or the more in intensity, also the merrier. So we cannot peg it that, oh, we should do fasting every day. Yes, you can fast, but if you look at the principle of fasting, there are people who are exempted from fasting also. The aged, nursing mothers, and then children. You can't force them to fast. So you cannot say fasting should be every day. But then that day is austerity, marked for people to intensify their practice. This is my understanding. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ganga Prasad. Thank you very much.
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you. If I may revisit what I was saying, that is back to Godhead. Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, text 16. That is where it talks about fallible and infallible. And what I am beginning to see is that oftentimes when the devotees use these words, fallible and infallible, the understanding and approach is like a mango fruit falling from a mango tree. That is not what I understand it to be, except somebody will help educate me in that sense. In the purport to that particular text, Srila Prabhupada explains what fallibility means. And in that purport, Srila Prabhupada says that fallible means change of body. So in this material world, it says change is the rule of nature. Everything changes. But in the spiritual world, nothing changes. And that is why there is no fallibility in the spiritual world. But in this material world, everything is fallible, everything changes. If we go to the spiritual world, then nothing changes. If I may put the verse actually back on the screen, so we all read it. This is 15:16, very popular verse. There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. Now, Srila Prabhupada talks a lot about Jiva Bhuta. When the living entities are in contact with material world, they are called Jiva Bhuta. You continue. Those who are in oneness with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, are called infallible. Oneness does not mean that they have no individuality. Srila Prabhupada explaining this merging. But down here, where? Let me start from here. There all exist in oneness. Shara Sarvani Bhutani. Any living entity who has come in contact with matter, beginning from the first created being, Brahma, down to a small ant, is changing its body. Therefore, they are all fallible. In the spiritual world, however, they are always liberated in oneness. Even before here, devotees may read this later on, where Srila Prabhupada talks about it in the material world, the living entity undergoes changes, birth, growth, duration. These things do not happen in the spiritual world. Therefore, in the spiritual world, they are referred to as infallible. In the material world, fallible. And we talk about Nitya Siddha, Nitya Baddha. So the Nitya Siddhas, they are eternally liberated, so they can never become Buddha. Nitya Siddha, Nitya Baddha. They can never become Baddha. So if the Nitya Siddhas can never become Baddha, how do we expect that the Nitya Baddhas will become Nitya Siddha at some point? But Srila Prabhupada and the scriptures explain that by nature, all 11 entities are Nitya Siddhas. And Anadi Nidanam, thank you for sharing that in the chat room, that it's just like the Christian description of the prodigal son. That is what it is. Because Srila Prabhupada again explains that when the 11th entity gets out of the spiritual world from Vaikuntha, his first designated position is that he becomes Brahma. And if you are Brahma, it's almost like you are still in the Vaikuntha world until you start spending all the good credits you have, and then you start losing, and then you become a pauper. When you reason, he says, okay, I have to go back to my father. And that is what we're doing now. Mukunda Prabhu, please, you may unmute, otherwise I'm talking too much.
Yes, Prabhuji. So just so we have a balance, can you pull up 7135?
7135, I think I put that up here already. Let me see, 7135.
And I sent you the the history of Srila Prabhupada's statement. It was in the very first issue of Back to Godhead. He quoted it in his first issue in 1944. It was during World War II.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have 7135.
Okay, so right. So go down in the purport. All right. So let's get to the front. He's going to describe. Let me see. He's going to describe. Okay, there, right there. So let's read that section right there. Therefore,
Therefore, it is to be understood that when Jai and Vijay descended to this material world, they came because there was something to be done for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, it is a fact that no one falls from Vaikuntha.
So let me explain.
Yes.
During the time, I was there, actually, literally during the time in 75, when there was a lot of discussion around the issue, because Srila Prabhupada's general preaching was that we were fallen from grace and we're going back. So because devotees had started to say the thing that we do fall from Vaikuntha, Srila Prabhupada in the purport wanted to clarify that, because they were using the example of Jai and Vijay to prove it. So Srila Prabhupada, to set the Siddhantic standard, he quotes that unless there's something to be done, so unless there's a Leela and so forth, because he's many times mentioned that in the spiritual world, in the very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that there is no illusion. So there would not be a methodology or a mechanism for the associates in the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, Golok, Vrindavan, etc., to become bewildered. So Prabhupada wanted to make that clear. So there are a whole list of quotes, but what happened is when the issue becomes too controversial, it does not serve the preaching or the devotees. So then the idea came, listen, if you understand it, if you don't understand it, it's not a crux issue. It won't stop anybody from going back to Godhead, whether you're clear or not. But if you study the writings of Srila Prabhupada, like in the Krishna book, chapter 28, Srila Prabhupada says, when the devotee becomes perfect, he goes to Goloka Vrindavan, where he meets Krishna for the first time. That's one of the very early books of Srila Prabhupada, chapter 28 of Krishna book. He actually writes that in that chapter. So it's just that because like when Srila Prabhupada first did his tape, he said, we are all originally Krishna conscious. So in English language, that means original means we were with Krishna. You understand? So all the devotees took it to mean that. But then when you studied it more deeply, Srila Prabhupada is saying, by nature, by constitution, we're all the Das of Krishna, whether you know it or not. So he wasn't speaking about an original history of the devotees being with Krishna. He was speaking about the constitution of the jiva, that we are all Das of Krishna, whether you know that or not. Just like we've become aware of it, so we're trying to practice. But we can't say that others who don't know anything about bhakti, that they're not the Das of Krishna. Every jiva is the Das of Krishna, whether they know it or not. So he was speaking about it. So it was an ontological statement, not a historical one. You understand? Now, I don't want to burden it, but there's so many statements of Jiva Goswami, so many things, but I don't want to put devotees in a position where they have to defend that thing one way or other, because as Ganga Prabhu mentioned, and I think as you've mentioned before too, Prabhu, it's not something we should have so much controversy over that we lose fact that it doesn't matter now that we're here. We're all on our way back because we're practicing bhakti.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you, Sahadev Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Ganga Prasad Prabhu.
We don't have to overstretch this, but the simple thing that is also scriptural is that you quoted Lord Brahma now. Brahma came from the lotus level of Gabodakashai Vishnu. Isn't it?
Yeah.
And where did the Purusha avatars, where did they come from?
Krishna.
But then they came, Krishna is always in the spiritual world for the purpose of creating material world. He came through Mahavishnu, descended, and then became Karana Dakashai Vishnu in the Viraj, and then Gabodakashai Vishnu, and Shiro Dakashai Vishnu. And the statement is, these Purusha avatars, they are eternal in the material world, but not in the spiritual world. And then when he impregnated the jivas that will be in the material world, he impregnated Mother Nature with jivas that will be here. Where did they come from? From where he is. These are just common sense understanding, and if we overflog it,
well,
then, let me finish.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
You see, I started the class with one very statement from Prabhupada's song. Prabhupada said in that song, all living entities have come under the control of the illusory energy by your will. Anyhow you want to expand it or reduce it. And Prabhupada went further. And therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. I started the class and let this be the foundation of our understanding, so that these controversies that we are delving into now will not be there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Well, thank you. Well, like I wrote a piece some few days ago that we are in this material world, and ideally, we would like to have a world of Vaikuntha in this material world, but it's just utopian. So this back and forth, we came from spiritual world, we did not come from the spiritual world, it's never going to end. But it won't, I believe so, it will never end. But like Bukuna Prabhu, of course, Ganga Prasad Prabhu, you all are saying, Thakur Murari Prabhu also, above all this, whether we came from there, we did not come from there, we are here performing devotional service, serving Guru and Krishna, and we are all tasting some bliss from rendering such service. So let's go ahead and then do it. But when we hear or see devotees having this back and forth discussion, I think it actually makes Krishna happy. That my devotees are discussing about me. They're talking about me. As long as we do not fight, we do not insult, I think Krishna may be happy.
That is very true. That is very true. Let me just add this very little note.
Okay.
In case of Jaya and Vijay, which was like reference for the falling of the living entity, Jaya and Vijay had the capacity they came here out of the will of the Lord. But their swarup, original spiritual body, they
Never
left it in
came.
the spiritual world. Their service continued. They didn't stop service in the spiritual world. They came here for a particular service, like you mentioned about the interceders. It's for a purpose. And all of us also, by the time we perfect our life and we have to go back to Godhead, we have to achieve our original swarup, original spiritual body. It is our original spiritual body that will go back to the kingdom of God with. Narad Muni is an example in that first canto. He said the same thing. So there's no need for this back and forth argument. But like you rightly said, Krishna said, Machitama Gata Pranam, Budayanta Parasparam, Katyantas Chamam Nitya, Tusyanticha, Ramanticha. So we are enlivening each other. But the people should not become confused also. Why are enlivening each other?
Of course.
Yeah. So actually, directly there's a statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Siddhanta Baila Chitana Karulas. Lagi Krishna Sudurid Manas. Krishna is very happy when devotees have even Siddhanta Baila Chitana Karulas, means even if it's a difficult topic and some controversy, Krishna's happy when devotees are discussing, oh, how does this work? How does that work? As long as it doesn't become negative, it's good.
Exactly.
Yeah, you understand?
Yes.
Yeah, and actually the statement that Prabhuji is making is written in the Bhavarta Deepika of Sridhar Swami, the original commentator on Bhagavatam. He states Jai and Vijay never left their positions in Vaikuntha. They came here by expansion.
Yeah. Well, I do not understand how some devotees would use Jai Vijay's pastime as the reason why living entities fall. Because
that was 1975.
Yeah, that is a special Leela. It's a special Leela. So to me, as we always say, Arjun playing ignorant does not mean that Arjun is ignorant. But it also means that there are such people who are actually like that. They are ignorant. They think that how can I fight my superiors? How can I fight this? How can I fight that? As we speak now, even in devotional service, there are, excuse me to say, some authorities who may be acting not nicely, and subordinate devotees will say, he's my superior, what can I say? No, what can I do? So I am thinking that Jai and Vijay's situation should never be used as the reason why I am here. I am here because I'm just rascal. Jai Vijay, they just came and performed pastimes. In fact, even Ravana, no, sorry, not Ravana. Ravana is Ram Leela. Krishna's Leela is
Kamsa.
Kamsa. Yes, Kamsa. Kamsa actually was speaking to Vasudeva, Krishna's father, and he was telling Vasudeva, he says, what can I do? I'm designed to behave this way. I do not want to, but I'm designed to behave this way. So part of Kamsa understands that he is acting a drama. He's acting a role. In my case, I'm not acting a role. No, I'm being battered here and there by Mahamaya. But Yoga Maya battering anybody is pure. He says, to sleep is Maya. Lord Vishnu sleeps. But that is not Maya because his sleep is yoga, nidra. So, Arichakra Prabhu, please you may unmute. And Ganga Prasad, in fact, let me give you, I'll put my hat off to you because almost every single time you speak, you allow some of us, like my crazy self, to also become Vyasadeva. You let me become the speaker also, please. I really appreciate that because I should not be the one speaking. It should be just the yesterday representative. Chakra
Quickly,
Prabhu, please.
Prabhuji.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just quickly, Kangsa, he was not in that trilogy. So Kangsa actually he was previously Kalanemi in the previous life.
Yeah, Karanemi.
So he actually was, yeah, he was really like demon. He was not acting. But Sishupal and Dantavakra, Ravan and Kumbhakarna, and Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakasipu, they were actually Jai and Vijay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Chakra Prabhu, please give me a minute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for all
Hare
this
Krishna.
celebration. Personally, like you said, personally, when we have a deliberations of this caliber, I feel like we are trying to exercise our brains, right?
Mm.
Instead of talking nonsense, then we exercise our brains. So as long as we don't, like you said, as long as we don't become antagonistic to each other, and we do, because looking at all the angles devotees speak from, whether we come from the spiritual world or we don't come, every aspect of it has got solid evidence.
Yes.
To prove. Every aspect, whichever stance you take, has got solid evidence. It's like my grandchild asked me, so who is your father? Then I tell my father, and who is your father's father? Then he goes out. Then I finally say, we are all from God. Then he said, then who is the father of God? So when I hear this thing, do I have to just brush the child off that? No. You don't have to ask these questions. I must have something that what do we call it? In her level of understanding, I should be able to bring out some philosophy for her to get some little bit of understanding where God comes from. All right.
Mm.
So similarly, it's like this, when we talk like this, a lot of devotees use the argument that there is no illusion in the spiritual world. There's no envy in the spiritual world. So, but personally, I don't think so. Because if the scripture is telling us that the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, a perverted reflection means there must be the original thing. And the original thing, when it's reflected in the mirror, then it becomes perverted. So, how can there be something in the material world that doesn't exist in the spiritual world? Then automatically the material world becomes superior to the spiritual world because it has something that doesn't exist in the original
In
world.
the spiritual world, yes.
Exactly. So, like, I stand to be corrected. What I believe is that everything that is in the material world should have its original nature in the spiritual world. But once it crosses the mirror, crosses the mirror of what do we call it? The mirror of the three modes of material nature, then it becomes perverted.
Yeah.
It's turned upside down. So if I stand to be corrected, so if what I'm thinking or the way my mind is going is not right, then maybe the gurus are here. Someone can just.
Okay, Prabhu, I guess we have spent sufficient time in this Sangha, and we have to attend to other things. So we can call it a day at this point. Thank you all for your contributions.
Before we do that, Prabhuji.
Your compliment is because we have to have interactive session. So everybody brings in something, and then we all feel enlivened. And
yes, thank you. But we have Mukunda Prabhu stand up. Maybe we'll take that one and then we'll bring this to a close. Thank you so much, Ganga Prasad Prabhu. Mukunda Prabhu, please give me a minute.
Yeah, so of course, sometimes we want to use our own understanding, but we also have to always go by Sastra. So in the very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the very last line of that verse, it says, Damna Swena Sadal Nirastam Kuhakam. It means in the spiritual world, if we read it, you pull that verse up, it says, there is no illusion. So if you take an example, like if you look in a mirror at your body, it looks like a reflection. It's a reflection of your body. but the mirror has no three-dimensional depth. You cannot see anything. So it's not that a reflection is exactly fully containing everything that the original does. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, so if you look in the mirror, you could see your form is there, but that form has no three-dimensional depth. There's no thing, like substance and all. It's just a reflection. So it's not that in the reflection, everything that's in the original is present. You understand? And then also by Sastra, we have to honor that Dam na Swena, my Dam, Swena means his own Dam, Sadani Rastam Kuhakam. It has no illusion. Therefore, Satyam Paramadimahi. It is very worth our time to meditate on that because it is in fact different from this world, which does have illusions.
Beautiful. Hare Krishna.
Like I said, Ganga Prasad has spent so much time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I was going to also bring a but I'll just
Hare Krishna, Hare
let
Krishna,
it go.
Prabhu. Let's attend to this next segment,
Yeah.
and
right.
we'll continue. It's ever
All
increasingly
right.
Definitely. Ganga Prasad Prabhu, please, you may give your concluding remark. Before you do that, I must repeat myself that thank you so much for allowing some of us to also become Vyasa representative, sharing while you are the representative. Hare Krishna. Please, you may give your concluding remark.
I when I was preparing for the class or the presentation, I have very deep conviction that many times we have seen devotees when they speak about this pastime, they make it like a gory tale. But then with the understanding of the scripture, we treat it lightly because like we now find out, Jan Vijay, they came here not of their own volition, but they came for harmonizing the desire of God with their desire. And the interesting part, even though they are acting like Nishingadev, acting like Hiranyaksha here, Dantavakriya and Shikshupal and even Jan Vijay, their original spiritual body is in Vaikuntha, original spiritual body. Their services were not interrupted. So if you speak too much about them in blasphemy, then you may be destroying yourself. So it's good to be guided, and then we'll be able to benefit maximum from all this lila. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Ganga Prasad Prabhu. Dear devotees, and of course, all our audience and contributors to this wonderful Krishna Katha, we are going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute yourselves, and we all with one heart, one love, chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our deepest appreciation to our revered speaker, His Grace Ganga Prasad Prabhu, for sharing his love and wisdom with us all. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Grace Ganga Prasad Prabhu ki jai. Prabhupada ki